team players, welcome to another fantasy breakdown. And the reason to check out Bob and I is, quite frankly, we're both winners at leagues. We've been helping people win leagues. That's what we do. And if you just want to have generic, hey, this guy's awesome, this isn't the place for you. We're going to tell you the truth about what's really going on, people's situations, who you want to avoid, and who to make the people you want to lose in your league. Take the bottoms, not us. But long story short, in today's episode, this is going to be week 9, the 9th round, as broken down by ESPN's rankings in the beginning of June, going off of their top 20 rounds for a PPR league. We will differentiate between a standard and PPR stud if there is a difference, but in general, it kind of flows out the way it is. And you see all the names at the top of your screen, and I'm going to start off as true as I can. When I tell you if someone sucks and you should avoid them, I'm going to tell you up front. We don't teach people how to win week 1. Week 1, sure, it's nice. It's about winning championships. And if you want to win a championship, you have to have your guys playing weeks 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And there is a very obvious will not be playing at that point, and that is Tua. Tua Tagovailoa has already contemplated not playing football until 6 hours before the draft this year. He is already in a coaching staff that shows he does not value his experience or health at all. That was the entire basis of Tua not wanting to come back. So at the end of the day, Miami recognized that they went all in on Tua, 5th pick overall, and they don't even have a backup for him. But they don't care at all about him. So they force him on the field constantly. Bigger problem, Tua on the field does not process. Over 75% of his throws go to the left third of the field, and the Jets have proven this. I'd go Tua forever. Don't draft Tua.
We're gonna stop you right there. For anybody that knows Joe, he really dislikes Tua. But
more so the coach.
But he makes a very good point when it comes to fantasy football. Is Tua was, when he was on the field last year, he put up really, really good numbers for a fantasy quarterback.
He'll win you December, or he'll win you September and November, but not December.
What we want to caution, and I think better stated here, would be that when you are playing fantasy football, you want to rely on a guy that's going to be there, especially your quarterback. And drafting Tua in the 9th round
is too high.
Even drafting in the 10th round is a little bit too high, because there's some players that haven't come up yet that are going to be perfectly valuable players in the quarterback position, and that you can avoid Tua. Now,
we haven't said Dak yet.
Now, is that to
Dak's
say
going to play all year?
Is that to say that when Tua plays, he's not going to put up good numbers? He probably is
going
to put
up
good numbers, because two of the wide receivers that he has in Waddle and in Hill are in our top 10.
He's just not going to play when it matters.
So when you look at this group of players, I think one to avoid, because it is a landmine, is Tua, because you aren't going to come at it from the perspective of he's not a good value here. He really isn't. Even in the 9th and 10th round, he's not really a good value.
He's on my don't draft list
because of the players that are still here on this board. Now, in this round, you're getting a lot of guys that you look at and you're saying, hey, why should I take one of these players over a seasoned name? Well, when I look at it, and specifically looking at the wide receivers in this room right now, in Brown, Burks, and Cooks, their situations are so wildly different with one another.
They really are.
All 3 of them are playing essentially with new quarterbacks at the beginning of the season.
They are, yeah.
Murray's hurt. Will Levis for the Titans, potentially.
I still think it's going to be Tannehill, though.
It could be. And then you have Dak with Cooks. Now,
and Dotson, too, on that list. Dotson's playing with a new quarterback as well.
I just want to focus on the guys with new quarterbacks here. So,
Dotson does have a new quarterback.
Well, yeah, Dotson, too, with a new quarterback. It seems like the Commanders always have a different quarterback.
Ain't that the truth?
But when you look at one of the guys that I'm really intrigued at is Cooks, because Cooks is still young, despite him being in the league for a long time.
Like 6 different teams.
I actually saw this on TikTok the other day. Is that he's actually still under 30. So I mean, it's hard to believe a guy that we've relied on in fantasy for a long time. Now, he was not put into good positions last year on his team. Now, Houston didn't have anybody to throw him the ball essentially for most of the season.
Not really.
But now he's in Dallas. Now he is a target from a guy who does like to throw the ball.
Oh yeah.
Now
they also got rid of their lead dog at back. Dallas said they're throwing the ball more.
We like CeeDee Lamb a lot. Well, for the same reasons we like CeeDee Lamb a lot, I think it's fair to say that Brandon Cooks, as a third or fourth option on your fantasy team in this regards, is not a bad get. Because you look at when he is, out on the field, he's winning at least 25%.
Oh, yeah, easily.
All right. And so you look at it and you say, okay, could I construct a back end depth with some of these players? Absolutely. And Brandon Cooks is perfectly startable, I think, in a lot of leagues because Dalton Schultz is gone. Michael Gallup is gone. You've got Tony Pollard and you've got CeeDee Lamb as the other targets that Dak will want to get the ball to. Now, as for Marquise Brown.
Well, before you go to Brown, I want to finish off Cooks here because Cooks is very clearly the number 2 best receiver, and it's not even close on Dallas. And that includes Pollard in his share, and he's never been in a situation this good overall. And Cooks is one of these guys who's going to slide down boards because he's not a big, sexy name. He's a guy who, when it's all said and done, is probably a top 20 receiver. Just for the simple fact that they're telling you they're throwing the ball. That McCarthy is taking over the plays, which tends to lean towards more passing options to show he's the smartest man in the room, and Dak pushes it. All of these things really benefit Cooks overall, and we'll do it at the NR rankings, but I just got a side question. Talent-wise on the field, I can make an argument that Cooks can do more of everything. Being like the jack-the-ball tradesman, he'd be the best of all 4 of that group in there, and probably better than some of the ones we talked about yesterday.
I would say that. Now, the reason I like Cooks here is that when we look at the value that he provides out of this group of players, is that he's going ADP maybe 100 in a lot of leagues. So he could go up as high.
Yeah, I'd take him way before that.
As high as 80, as low as 100. He's in a good situation. Even if Dallas decides to throw the ball, they are going to get to the red zone.
Okay.
And Cooks is a valuable threat in the red zone.
He absolutely is because you're double teaming CeeDee. I mean, when you're saying how are we going to cover? See, this is the other advantage of Cooks in this group in particularly. When you're saying how am I going to stop Hollywood or Burns or Dotson, that's the guy you're double covering because they're by far the number 1 receiver on their team. Cooks is going to be getting lesser coverage with the team that might have the most passing touchdowns in the league when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and he catches, and when he's in the red zone, he catches his passes.
Oh, really? He catches his passes anyways.
Last year, he was 6 out of 9 in the red zone on throws targeted to him. Now, if you're looking at any other player from this grouping, there's a couple of, I want to speak on Brown and Burks for a moment here. I think Burks, he got a bad shot last year. He only played in 11 games. The situation is really
how can you measure it when he didn't have a quarterback?
Yeah, it's really a weird situation for him. But if you look at his targets, and I think it's important that if we take a look at them and see, did anything change other than the quarterback situation? Is there more weapons in Tennessee? No.
Well, getting Willis off the field. They only let Willis throw 11 times a game. By default, getting a competent quarterback, whether it be Levis or Tannehill the whole year, Burks is probably one of your highest upside guys that you could, quite frankly, get a steal at.
So you're looking at this. Last year in 11 games, he had 54 total targets. Okay, 54 total targets. He didn't catch all of those targets, obviously.
Yeah.
And there were games where, he had less than a 4.
But if you extrapolate that to a whole season, it'd be about 80 targets. If you extrapolate that
to a whole season with a player that's going to play, he is a red zone threat. He is physical as a wide receiver. He's a good decision in this round. You go up to Marquise Brown.
He's the only option.
It's him
and Ertz. Those are the only 2 pass catchers on the team.
He in the red zone, Marquise Brown caught the majority of the passes that were thrown his way in the red zone. If we look up those numbers in Arizona last year, how many times he was targeted in the red zone. You had Dortch at 57% and Marquise Brown at 50%. But the target percentage was 28%. He was targeted more in the red zone than any other Arizona wide receiver. And if you take a look at Arizona tight ends in that same
and that's only going to go up with Hopkins gone.
If you take a look at that in the same regard, Zach Ertz had 15 targets in the red zone. Now, this is an
Ertz was injured a lot, though.
This is an indictment against Arizona, obviously, though, because Arizona is not going to get into the red zone as much this year.
So that's my question. Would you rather have a guy who gets a lower percentage, but knowing that their team is going to score a whole lot more touchdowns, or do you want to have Hollywood? And I look at between the two of them, it's an argument for, and I tend to fall in this camp a lot. If you're giving me the same tier, both being receiver 1 and receiver 1, I want to be on the team that's going to score more touchdowns.
But see, here's the issue with Marquise Brown. ESPN has him listed here as the 81st best player. His ADP right now is sitting at 81.
That's where people are taking him. I think it's a name recognition thing.
People are taking him higher than that, knowing that he's the number 1 wide receiver on a team that has no really other credible target.
Same thing's true about Treylon Burks.
That is true about Treylon Burks, but Treylon Burks hasn't built up the name.
That's what I'm saying. I don't like spending resources and overbuying a name. I just don't. And that's my biggest problem with Hollywood. And that's why there's another name on here that I was waiting to come around when we were talking about if you were playing the let's go receiver heavy, maybe even you took Kelsey and then went receivers. If you can get Robinson sitting down to you here in the 9th round, that's something that's incredibly favorable to me because Robinson's a guy that I just want. And there's 2 reasons for this. If you go back and watch our team overviews, to me, Washington is the biggest enigma in football. I think that they have a chance to go off. I really do. They just don't have a quarterback in the line. And they're a team that's always going to have to score because, quite frankly, they know their defense is bad. So when you know your defense is bad and your goal still is to winning games, they still have a very good winning coach. That means you're going to run the ball. And Robinson, until he got shot, looked like he was the real deal. He just lost. How do you come to a season after getting shot during training camp? It ain't going to work out too good. So I look at as him as saying, I'd rather have Robinson being the clear-cut number 1 running back on the team rather than having A.J. Dillon, who is, I believe he's the first handcuff who's come up so far in A.J. Dillon. And so that's my answer with that.
So here's the issue with both Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson is when you take a look at their snap counts, when you take a look at what they produce on the field, their numbers are almost identical.
I know. So, I think Gibson's going to fade out though, because Gibson's what, 6 years older?
I mean, there's a good chance that happens, but they still like Antonio Gibson as a target in receptions, particularly.
Yeah.
So owning both of these, this is a situation that I would let somebody else take care of, and especially if I'm thinking if I don't have a running back yet, I might consider one of these. If I don't have a credible 3rd running back yet, I would consider these 2 guys because out of the 5 running backs on this list, they're the 2 guys that I know are definitely going to get the ball for their team. Now, as far as, and I'm going to get to that, as far as Rashad Penny goes, that situation is going to be very similar to the situation we have with the Commanders, is that there's DeAndre Swift on the team as well. And so if you fall into the camp where you're okay, and I've done this multiple times before where I've taken both Buffalo running backs or I've taken both New England running backs because the value is there, especially at the turn, and I don't know which one's going to hit. Yes, you're cannibalizing a roster spot because you're always keeping 2 backs from the same team on your field on your roster. But let's face it. You look at the stats that were put up last year by Antonio Gibson. Rushing stats: 546 yards, 3 touchdowns. He played in 15 games. Receiving stats: 46 receptions, 353 yards.
And so if you're in a standard league, Gibson should not be considered. Exactly. He's not giving you value in a standard league.
Now, for Brian Robinson, 797 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. but only 60 yards receiving.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the rub with these two players. You never really know what's going to hit, and I would leave that to another manager to figure out.
Well, this is kind of when we get into the conversation of selecting handcuffs and who do you want, other than taking your own guys. If you're just saying just straight up, I want to play, I'm taking all the receivers I can, and then I'm just going to steal all the handcuffs. So rank me the handcuffs. Where do I want to be? I'm looking first and foremost, is there a good running situation with a back who does not have durability history? And to me, that screams Rashad Penny. Philly loves running the ball, and Swift loves getting hurt. Like, I think Rashad Penny is an absolute great handcuff, and you're going to make this Swift owner really mad, which also might have some value in itself, depending on how much you like the guy. But Penny, I see Penny as it is giving you value. Remember last year, Philly would hand – we had this problem in DSF a lot. Yeah, they would just hand the ball off to the third and the fourth running back sometime just to save their guys because they'd be winning by so much. Now, the East doesn't have as easy as a schedule as last year, but there's still a lot of cupcakes when you look at from Philly's perspective.
But here's the issue with Rashad Penny. There's 3 viable running backs.
Yeah.
4 if you count
Jalen Hurts. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of mouths to feed in Philadelphia.
There are.
And if you are relying on Rashad Penny to beat your flex, or you're relying on him to do, I'm gonna stay away from that one because there's another guy on this list that 2 guys that we didn't talk about yet that I think are really important to talk about is A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams. A.J. Dillon was drafted as high as the 2nd round last year for a lot of people. We thought that his quads were going to take us to the moon, but
they still should. They look amazing.
It didn't happen. But now with Jordan Love at the helm, it's reasonable to assume that with 2 solid running backs and a reliance on a short passing game potentially, that for the same reasons we didn't like Christian Watson going forward, this could be a really good opportunity for A.J. Dillon because A.J. Dillon is a productive player. Now, the other player here is Jamal Williams.
It's a wild card with him.
If Alvin Kamara, if it is found out in August or in July that Alvin Kamara is not playing
then Jamal Williams and also Jamal Williams doesn't get suspended.
Right. He's not because we had the wrong Williams.
Oh.
We had the wrong Williams. It was Jamison Williams, not Jamal.
Oh, how about that?
But even as far as you have that, Jamal Williams.
Well, when Kamara gets suspended, Jamal Williams. Well,
he's going to be taken in the 4th round.
Yeah.
3rd round, potentially. So you aren't going to have – he's not going to fall this far.
There's also a chance Kamara's just done. Remember, the Saints drafted pretty highly a running back.
Yeah.
That's an indictment of Kamara.
So with all that said, it seems reasonable to assume that if you are taking a player in this 9th round of your draft, you do want to target a wide receiver because the value here at running backs, there is value there, but it's a lot of unquestioned certainty. And this is why we said during a couple of videos before that we like to get known commodities at running back to start with, because at least you can kind of,
if you're going to wait on a running back, you got to at least start in the 5th or 6th round and hope that a Dobbins or someone is still around.
But I'm not saying that Penny. I'm not saying that
Penny is a bench spot in week 1. At least if Penny is more than a bench spot in week 1, you had a bad draft.
Yes,
that's the end of
you want Penny to be on your bench, or at minimum you're putting him as your 2nd flex or your 1st flex or whatever. But I think by season's end, there's a good chance that he accumulates a lot of touchdowns because this Philadelphia offense is much more high powered than any other offense on this list. So there's going to be opportunities.
Well, the exception maybe the Cowboys.
Yeah, there's going to be opportunities for him. And so you would hope that eventually he accumulates some of the opportunities. I don't see anywhere out of the realm of possibility of, like 600 yards, 6 touchdowns, something like that for Penny, maybe getting something in the red zone. He can carve out a niche role like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the possibility that they brought Penny in just so Hurts doesn't get hit as much. Because unlike many running quarterbacks when we think of Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Fields, they're not dependent upon the quarterback run nearly as much. The slot game that they do with slants in Philadelphia is something that people should be copying, especially if you have a mobile quarterback. And I think as a result, they're saying we're just going to let him sit in the pocket and we're going to let Swift do stuff and we're going to let Penny do all the hard work. And I think that this is how this team's built.
So this is also
because remember, they had Penny on the roster before Swift.
Yeah.
They thought Penny was going to be their lead dog.
This is the caution here. He's coming off of injury. He only played 5 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Hurt his fibula. That's important. That's part of your leg. You want that part of your leg if you're a running back.
It snaps, you die. I mean, that's pretty important in the human body.
So I mean, all things considered, if you're looking at this list, Joe, and I think we can rank them right now.
Yeah, I think we could.
These are the guys that I'm most interested off of this list to start with. I'm interested in Treylon Burks. That's my number 1 here.
Okay.
I think that his ceiling is fairly high, in considering that he is the top option on a team that is hopefully going to move the ball better this year, especially with Derrick Henry. I then like Brandon Cooks. I think Brandon Cooks is set up for a really good opportunity here. I wouldn't necessarily take him in this round. I might wait another round because I think he could still be there. But that's who I'm going with here at my 2 slot. My third one is Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is going to be the guy this year, I think, in Washington. Despite what we want to say about Antonio Gibson's receiving abilities, if there's any cohesion in the Commanders' offense, they're going to carve out a niche role for both of them.
They're going to.
And I think that for that reason, that's why I then place Antonio Gibson at 4. If you're in a standard league, Antonio Gibson isn't even on your radar.
He should have been.
He's not even ranked in the top 100, not even ranked in the top 150 in my mind. But for any purposes there, I think that I'm going to look at Antonio Gibson in that role. Then these next 3 are kind of like, it's hard to decide how to rank them because they have some weird situations. I'm going to go Jamal Williams next because I think that even with Kamara on the field, I think Jamal Williams is going to have a big role, especially in the red zone, and I think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns coming Jamal Williams' way because we know that Derek Carr doesn't run in the red zone. So there's a good chance that Jamal Williams is going to put up points regardless. Then I'm going to put A.J. Dillon because I think that there's going to be a resurgence there in Green Bay, followed by Rashad Penny. And my last 2 basically do not draft candidates here. I'm staying away from these 2 because of how much you have to spend to get them in Marquise Brown and Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think that Marquise Brown is going to go in the 9th round. I think he's going to go in the 6th or 7th round, and I think that's too high. And Tua right here, I just don't think the value is there. If Tua ends up falling to the 12th round or 11th round, I would consider taking him there, but not in the 9th.
Well, on my quarterback list, Tua is not in the front top 12, so I understand that completely. So to give you mine, I guess some similarities, obviously, but
I forgot to rank Dotson.
Dotson would be 8th.
Dotson would be above Brown and
Gotcha. Tua. So for mine here, I believe Brandon Cooks is in a category of his own from this list, and I would have him first. Second would be Brian Robinson for me, because the other part that is the caveat for them countering so much into Gibson and Robinson crossover of last year is of all of the coaching staffs in the NFL and sensitivity to recovering from injury, Washington is first and foremost. That's just the way that they are. And your head coach surviving cancer will have a lot to do with that. And I believe that Robinson, having in a complete year of being healthy, showing them that he's fine, has the potential of being something stupid crazy like a top 15 running back. And you're going to get him in the 19th round. Correction, 9th round. Sorry, I said that wrong. And it could be a crazy steal. So I definitely like Robinson as my 2-hole here. My 3 is going to be Burks. I believe that Burks is going to get so much more volume and, more importantly, better volume than he had before. And I think that he's going to be your clear target leader in Tennessee. Again, it might not be the biggest pie in the world, but I like having a number 1 receiver that's going to be on a team that's going to be productive at minimum. Then I do take Hollywood because I got to go off the list that's in front of me. I agree with you, Bob. Hollywood probably is going to get drafted because of name recognition before this. But just looking at this core group, I would have him as the 4th best fantasy option here. Number 1 receiver, they have two good tight ends in Arizona. Ertz is the only one who really can target, share, hunt with Hollywood here. And I suspect that since they're going to be trying to create trade value, they're going to force him early and sell him at the deadline, and then he's going to be at a team that matters. And I would love to see him paired with a real quarterback, and I think they're going to force Hollywood as a result. I'm going to get a lot of early season stupid touchdowns that wouldn't otherwise happen. I think that's the Arizona model right now. So number 5 for me does come Penny. I love Philadelphia's running game, all the reasons I said before. Number 6 is going to be Dotson. Again, I like the direction of Washington's going. Dotson is by far their most talented receiver. They don't have a tight end to speak of because he's never healthy, and I just like where he's at. Number 7 for me is going to be where I put Dillon. I always have this conundrum problem with A.J. Dillon. How do I think it's going to be? And with how wild card love is, I'm not sure I want to go all in aside from Jones on Green Bay's offense. So that puts that puts Dillon lower for me. Number 8, and now we're just starting to run out of the names here, does come Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams, when he's out there, is an absolute touchdown machine. Touchdowns, all that thing. Give him $5. He's giving you joy. That's Jamal Williams, baby. And then we're going to round out with the last 2, with Tua obviously being the last one because he's not draftable to me. I want to have players on my year that I don't need to worry about being desperate to have to trade and being desperate to have to play about the waiver wire. Playing the waiver wire in December to get a quarterback for the playoffs is a losing proposition, and Tua basically guarantees that for me, considering the fact that there are at least 4 great quarterbacks we have not discussed yet. Tua's on my don't draft list, and that's how it goes. So team players out there, click like, subscribe, and also hit us in the comments if you want to join one of our best ball leagues, as we'll be having those as we approach the season as we get closer to it.